Hello, witches. Madam Z here, your magical life coach, and we are here with the awesome Lindsey Rainwater. Welcome, Lindsey. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. This is the best thing that's happened so far today. So I'm like, yes, I'm going to enjoy this.
Great. Come hang out with us, witches.
Exactly.
Forget the muggle stuff. Let's go hang out with a bunch of witches, right?
Yep.
So, you're going to be presenting at the Witches Gathering November 6th through the 8th. Mm-hmm. So glad that you're going to be here hanging out with us, sharing all of your wisdom. But a lot of people are just like, who is Lindsey Rainwater? What is she all about? So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Ooh, that was a very open-ended question. I'm like, so I am still, I feel like finding my words. I only recently really claimed the word witch, like within the last couple years, and even then I was still very like weird about it, even though my Facebook memories come up from like 5-6 years ago and people were tagging me in witchy stuff, and I'm like, I had no idea that this was going on this long. I've always been fascinated with the paranormal. I have been experiencing the paranormal since I was very, very young. I grew up in a Christian household, and so on one hand, I really understand where a lot of people are coming from as far as trying to break out of those roles that have been assigned to you, like good Christian girl.
Correct. Yeah.
But I will say I had parents who were actually very, very open-minded. I was allowed to watch movies that a lot of my Christian friends, their parents, like would find out that I saw these movies, and they're like, oh, you shouldn't be watching that. Labyrinth, Legend,
Legend.
You know, a lot of movies like that I was raised on. Like, not enough people know about Legend, and I'm like, we can't be friends.
I know. Legend is oh my gosh, what's his name?
Tim Curry.
No, not Jim Curry, but no. What is his name? The main character's name? Tom Cruise.
Yeah, Tom Cruise. Very young Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise before Tom Cruise, if you know what I mean. So go watch that movie, especially now. Legend.
Yeah. And so it's funny that I was raised Christian, and my mom was a lot more active in my like religious upbringing than my dad was. He was very like kind of did what my mom did and called that good. Yeah. He was raised basically atheist. And it's a weird thing to like break into when people ask me about me, but I'm like, I feel like that was so relevant that I was raised Christian. I found a lot of problems in the church. I found nothing but problems in the church, I'll be totally honest. I have a lot of wounds and problems from my time in the church and from other kids and pastors' kids and things like that. But my parents, you know, encouraged that. But yet I wasn't completely shielded from everything magical and things like that. And I took so many life lessons away from these movies. Like, seriously, just mad life lessons. And my mom watched these fantasy movies with me and stuff like that. So that was kind of my upbringing. And my mom knew I was weird. She's like, I always knew you were different. Yeah. She's like, the first time I really keyed in on that was apparently we were driving down the road and I was in my car seat. She's like, you were 2, maybe 3. She's like, so you were still very, very young and you were staring out the window very intently. And I asked what you were looking at and you told me an angel. And she's like, I wasn't really sure where to go with that, but I wasn't going to argue with you. So that's kind of like where that all started with me. It's kind of one of those things where it's just kind of been a part of my life forever. And sometimes I forget that that's not how everyone's life goes. But it's it's led me to ask a lot of questions. And I really understand people who feel like the church is missing something or the church is suppressing something. I've been told to repent. I've been told to, you know, Satan be gone with your false gifts and blah, 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 and all of that. And I actually did that once, and the gifts came back stronger. And I was like, okay, they're not from Satan then. Like, we're going with that. So that's kind of who I am. And I really, or a large part of how I identify is just someone who's kind of a professional weirdo. Like, I've been doing this a long time, even though I wasn't getting paid for it. And I really just, I want to start bringing more of that to people, because like I said, I think I lose sight of the fact that not everyone's life is like this.
Correct.
Not everyone has a supportive family that they can talk to. And like me, I live in a very conservative small town. So there's issues that come along with that. And like, I kind of, my IDGAF meter gets pegged. I'm like, I don't care what you think of me, but I also know a lot of people who don't have that freedom.
Correct. Yeah, that's, you know, the good thing about the event now that it's virtual is that we can bring all of these weirdos or witches or pagans or people who live on the fringe to other people who don't have that support system in their community. You know, small midtown, you know, Melissa is the only one in her, you know, class of 500 that, you know, wears, you know, is kind of gothic or whatever, is into that. So that's why it's important that with the virtual event that's happening the 6th through the 8th, that we can bring all of everybody's expertise into this person's home who'd never, you know, probably would never ever get the chance to hang out with you and talk about angels or, you know, talk about hoodoo or, you know, herbal magic, because they just don't have that opportunity, or they don't have those teachers in their where they're at, or they just don't have access to that.
Yeah. Even the libraries are lacking, severely lacking. Most places like this.
Correct. Now, you know, it's good that, you know, they have the internet and Google and stuff, but you can only read so much about things before you need to experience it.
Right.
And the good thing about the virtual event that's happening is you're going to learn all kinds of cool things that never, ever would have been brought to you in the place where you're at. I mean, there's people like, I didn't know anything about, you know, angels or Azrael, or, you know, because you're going to be talking about that, and we'll get more into that too. But and, you know, people have a misconception about angels. So what is your take on angels and who you work with?
So I think the biggest misconceptions have come from the love and light community getting a hold of this.
Yeah.
And the Christian community, because I think that's probably the most unfortunate thing about angel work, is that you do kind of have to come at it from a Judeo-Christian understanding. They're everywhere. They're with everybody. They will work with everybody, but our main understanding of them does come from, you know, Christianity, Judaism, and Islam.
Correct.
So you've got that, and yet the problem is that it's actually really vague. There's so much reading in between the lines that can be done. And I have actually read books on angels. Like I have this entire section over here. Like, this is all angel books. There's some more over there. Like, I've done reading from Christian standpoints and pagan standpoints and things like that. Obviously, I did a lot of reading with Doreen Virtue, and you know what? That's one of those things that I actually had someone,
the name that shall not be named.
You know, I actually had someone tell me to stop talking about her, and I told them to go fuck themselves.
Correct.
Because they were like, stop giving her attention. I'm like, no, because this is important. This is so crucial to see how this fell apart. Now, do I think that she completely lost her mind and somehow got scared, like scared straight, as the church would probably put it? Yeah. And I really do feel bad for her. I honest to God, like, was I mad at her? Yes. Do I mostly just feel really bad for her? Yes. Because she brought a lot of very important information mainstream.
Yes.
And then something happened. And one thing that I really realized, though, was that there's no other good sources of information for people to go to.
Correct.
When I saw that.
It makes you wonder, though, and we'll talk about this too. She was all light and love, and I have a lot of Doreen Virtue's tarot decks, and they're phenomenal. They're really good. Some of them more than others, but I use them a lot, and my clients love them because they're kind of light and fluffy sometimes, and sometimes you need that. But it makes you wonder what experience, that one experience she may have had that was like, oh, I'm out. I'm done with this whole light and love. This is like, no. Because to me, angels are not all about white light and love and energy as far as it's fine and blah, blah, blah. Angels can be like devastating, and they can be tough to work with. And it makes me wonder if she saw that part of the angels and she was like, oh no, I can't do this anymore. So I just feel like something happened.
The only information I could find was that, like, Jesus came to her in a vision, and she would not talk about it. I felt maybe somebody else has more information, but so, but exactly, angels are a lot. Because I actually went to one of her. It was a Hay House conference where she was, so a lot of her people showed up, and I was just like, I am in the wrong place. These are not my people.
Yep,
because it was just so fluffy. Like, I hate using the term fluffy bunny, but it was so airy fairy, like, oh, angels and this and that. And like, I'd be like, okay, cool. Who do you work with? And I had, it's like Archangel Ariel and Archangel Uriel. And I'm like, okay, grand. Somebody's like, oh, Michael. And I'm like, no, you don't. There is no way that this encompasses working with Michael. Like, have you met Michael? He's terrifying.
Correct.
Like, he's awesome, but he's freaking terrifying. Yeah. That's his job.
Yeah.
So exactly, my experience with them is that they're a lot more complicated than people make them out to be. And at the same time, I feel like people try to ascribe very human aspects to them that they don't have.
Correct. Yeah.
Like, they just, you're working on two completely different levels here. So you're like, you're angry and they don't quite get that. They're like,
I've had an experience where because I love channelers for some reason. I just love channelers. And, you can tell the fake ones from the real ones and all that kind of stuff too. And so we were like in a channeling session, or not even a session, in a group, just talking about channeling experiences. And this one guy said that, he used to channel, I think it is Michael. Is it Michael? I'm not familiar with angels because I don't work with them, because I steered away from them, like, you said, because all the fluffy bunny crap. And I'm like, I am not into fluffy bunny. So you bring me a dark angel and I'm good. But he was talking about how if you were, channel Michael, it's Michael because his energy is so strong and so powerful. You feel it in the room. And I'm like, I don't know, because I believe that, but I kind of think that Michael would just kind of, if you channel Michael, he kind of would blow you out of the water or something. You would like slam you into the wall or something. I don't know. It's probably my misconception of working with him, but maybe in order to channel, you have to bring your vibration down, and he has control over it. I don't know. I don't work with him, but I found it fascinating that people want to channel these angels, and I'm like, I don't want to channel Michael. I don't. So what's your thought on that?
That's a good question, because I do channeling. I haven't been doing it enough, but I do automatic writing.
I love automatic writing.
So I have watched people claiming to channel some of the archangels, and I struggle with it.
Yeah.
Like, there was one, and like, I know channeling changes you. It can change your voice. It can change your facial expressions and all that. But there was something about this woman that I'm like, what is happening right now? Because I don't think Michael would talk like that. So I think one thing that I have noticed, and this is my personal experience, what I think, is that you have these different ranks of angels. Because I actually had someone kind of condescendingly tell me once, like, archangels aren't the most powerful angels, right? And I'm like, well, yeah, no shit. And like, they were expecting me to get mad, and I'm like, okay, cool. You want to talk to these other guys? Though they don't even know how to talk to humans. They're on this completely different level. Like, that's a waste of time. Like, angels, archangels are bad enough about, we're so fleeting. That it's like trying to communicate with something on that level. But that's like working with deities, that it's like you have to find that space where you can communicate, where you can make a connection, because there's no similarities here. Not really. So it is a case of vibration, because that's why a lot of people say, I work with Michael. I don't argue. I'm just like, okay, but I think most people cannot actually handle that level of intensity. But I do believe that there are angels that rank under them. And they kind of fall into those categories, though, because I've got one who has been with me my whole life. And he's got that Archangel Michael energy. It is not Michael, but it's that same energy. And it's like, I think that these are ranks almost.
Do you think that they have a lineage?
I don't know. It kind of feels like that. Like, that's a good word for it, but not in the way that a human would think of it. Like, it's not a procreation the way we would think of it. But it's almost like a system in an army, for lack of a better term, that if you have these guys up here, but then you've got all these guys underneath them, and they don't really mess with the other generals, like, I don't listen to you, I don't answer to you, because I have a dream angel who has Azrael's energy. But it's like, okay, I know you're two very distinct beings. Why do you have this very similar energy? And realizing that it's like archangels have helpers. And that's where it starts getting really weird, because it's like you have an archangel and it's so easy to think of them as like all powerful. They can do everything that they need to, because we can't wrap our minds around that level of power. But yet they have underlings. Like, well, why do you need underlings if you're so powerful? And like,
you have to delegate.
Like, your brain just starts spinning out after a while.
They're like, I can't do everything. I can't be everything everywhere. So I have army that I charge them and go send out and do all the little stuff.
So that's something that I've wondered, if people are channeling an angel and they think it's, Michael, but it may have a very similar energy signature.
That's interesting. I never thought of it that way, but yeah. I think that's very possible. I think so.
That's just one of my theories.
I like that theory. So tell us a little bit about the workshop that you're going to be doing, because I find it very interesting, because you have a different take on how to work with angels, and it's not all light and love. And I don't think anybody that I've ever come across or known has worked with angels the way you're working with angels. So,
full transparency, I'm still figuring out the workshop a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
Like, this has been an ongoing project. I have been working with Azrael for a very long time. I didn't actually know that's who he was at first. That's a very strange story. I don't know if you want me to launch into that.
Go ahead.
So, like I said, working with angels since I was very little. Looking back on it, I actually know that at least one of my imaginary friends, because I didn't have a lot of friends, like in-person friends, and I had this one imaginary friend that seemed to have a level of free will that was kind of odd. But I knew we were living in a brand new house. Like, it wasn't a ghost. it wasn't anything like that. It was just this imaginary friend who was like the voice of reason for me. She had more common sense than I did.
Mm-hmm.
And later on in my life, suddenly it hitting me like a brick that was one of my angels. That was who I have always considered male. Like they're semi-genderless, you know, it's how you perceive them and their energy. Some of them, I think, just lean more to the masculine or feminine. But they also kind of don't care. They're like, God, you guys get really caught up on this.
Yeah, exactly.
You're so worried about
it. We have to put people in a box, and we have to label everyone just so we can keep everybody organized.
Yeah.
We know.
Yeah. And they're just like,
who cares?
This is below them.
Yeah, exactly.
But there was one in particular that I started having dreams about. And, you know, at the time, I wish I could go back in time and pay more attention to those dreams, because I thought I was just having really weird dreams. I was plagued with nightmares as a kid, things like that. So this wasn't really unusual, and these were actually pretty pleasant. Oh, let me decline that. Just sitting there talking with this guy. And he reminded me of a monk wearing these gray robes. And it would often be like, it was almost always nighttime wherever we were, but it would be like sitting next to a campfire talking. It would be sitting on a pier looking out at the water. And then I really just started questioning who this person was, because our talks were very intense. Like, and I watched, I don't know if a lot of people know about, was it The Omen? It was about angels. And there was a trilogy. No, The Prophecy, not The Omen, The Prophecy.
Yeah.
I watched those movies from a young age. And I watched one of them recently and was like, why did you let me watch this as a kid? This is creepy. And my mom's like, you weren't scared. You were not scared of it. You just kind of took it in stride and you were correcting them. You were like, oh no, that's not, Angel wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Like, all right, that must have been fun. So I really was like questioning who this angel was, because I'm like, okay, I'm not actually dreaming, am I? No, not actually dreaming. Can't quite remember what we were talking about when we woke up, when I wake up, and things like that. And finally, one day, it just kind of became this burning need to know who this angel was. And looking around at our little scape where we were sitting, I realized that we're both sitting in a graveyard. And I wasn't scared. I was just like, this is new.
Yeah.
And I finally like, who are you really? Because he's sitting there talking to me about destiny and fulfilling roles. And, you know, I was brought here to do something very important. And I'm like, dude, I'm 12 or like whatever I was, somewhere in there. And I said, who are you? And he just kind of smiled, which he doesn't normally. That's not something Azrael does very often. And he's like, I think you know. And yeah, he just reached forward, popped me right here, and everything went black. And my first thought was like, oh my God, he killed me. Like, what are my parents going to think?
My dad, you're in trouble with my dad.
What's that?
So you're in trouble with my dad for killing me.
I suddenly can't hear you very good. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're good. You're good.
I don't know. You're very faint now for some reason. I hope that call coming in didn't mess my phone up. So that was when I really realized who was hanging around. And for years, he was there. And anytime that there was grief or anything, I mean, that energy was right there. But it wasn't until a handful of years ago that I realized, like, he wanted me to bring more of this information. He's like, people need to know this, because if you look at like mainstream angelology, it's like, oh, when someone's grieving, or like, you know, a pet or a family member has died, or if you're a nurse or you work in the you know, death industry, call on Archangel Azrael.
Yeah.
And I realized that this was such a narrow view of him. Because, like, yeah, he's the angel of death, but what is death? Death is it's a turning point. It's a transformation point. We die every day if we choose to. If you're actually on a growth journey, you die regularly.
Yeah.
And also kind of coming from the mainstream light and love, it's like, oh, but this is good. And you just accept it and you grow and like, oh, this is wonderful. And it's like, that is not how it works. I just made a post within the last couple of days that it's like, embrace the suck of growth because it sucks.
I read that. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Like if you're not breaking down and crying and really struggling, then you're missing some aspect of it and it's going to come bite you in the ass. But it can be hard to do. It can be hard to go with it if you don't have a support system.
Yeah.
And he was one of those constants. And I was able to tap into that energy and accept that and be like, hey, you're the angel of death. You're also that means that you're also the angel of rebirth.
Correct. Yeah.
So how do we, how can I use this to become a better person?
Correct.
How can I use this to leave this bullshit behind and move into being that new person? So that was where a lot of my most transformative work that I've done for myself came from. And I've noticed that if I hire a coach or something and I don't bring that energy in, it doesn't always stick as well as I think that it should. It's very easy for me to kind of slide backward.
Yeah.
So realizing that he wants that brought to the world was kind of a bomb, because I'm like, I don't know how to do that. And I've been sitting on this idea for a very long time that he wants me to do that. And one day, fairly recently, I was sitting there thinking about him because I keep finding gray feathers everywhere. That's his sign to me that he's trying to talk to me. Gray feathers all over my yard with no sign of the bird that they came from. Like, okay. And like flipping up the death card constantly out of tarot decks.
He reminds me of the death card in tarot.
Yes, that is his card. That's why that card's my jam.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
I'm going to try to turn my phone up. Hang on. I have no idea what it's doing. I can barely hear you though. So if I like lean in. And one day I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, and she was talking about how she's kind of freaked out by deity work and like spirit board work and stuff, but she was very open to the idea of angels. And at the same time, it's like, but I don't want to go down like the DV path because that doesn't feel right either. And I'm like, no, I totally get it. And so talking about that and realizing that the two major problems that you have are people who don't, like witches who want to move into working with a deity. I don't like describing angels as deities. They don't seem to like that term that much, but for lack of a better term for right now, you can kind of list them in those. But people are kind of scared of working with, Mars or Odin, and especially some of these guys that are a little pickier, like they want the attention and they want you to do it right.
Yeah.
And when you're busy or you're just getting started, you're like, what if I make them mad?
Yeah. Yeah.
And angels are kind of a great way to move into that because they're very forgiving. They're very flexible. But a lot of people don't know where to go with that. And there's also a lot of witches, kind of like you, who they just aren't interested because it feels too religious. It feels stifling. They're scared that all that, Judeo-Christian ideology is going to come with it. And some people, I've actually met a couple who were like legit angry about angel work and got like super, super pissy, not with me, like not at me, but I was like, wow, okay. And it's because of that church background. And some of them have met other angelologists and whatever. But that was like me meeting a lot of Doreen's followers. And I'm like, so many of them, this is super rude, but I'm like, you got screws loose. Like, what is happening right now? Are you on drugs?
Yeah.
Because they're so not grounded.
Correct. And, I talk about that too. And I've talked about that with you, is that you can, when you work in, witching or earth-based, whatever, religion, we work with the wheel of the year. We work in the dark half of the year, and we work in the light in the half of the year. It's called balance. We work on our shadows. We work with the dark energies. But when you're in light and love all the time, you just become so like burned out and high vibration all the time. It's like there's something out of balance when you work in the light too much and also in the dark too much.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I totally agree with that. People who work in the light so much can get burned.
Yeah, and the fact that they're not, angels are not vibrating on the same level as us.
Yeah.
They do have this weird high vibration, and I've experienced that while auto writing.
Mm-hmm.
That my auto writing stints only last just so long. Like one time I went 20 minutes and I had to go take like a 4-hour nap.
Yeah.
Because it just wiped me out and my hand was shaking uncontrollably by the end of it. And it's like, hey guys, you need like condense what you got to say.
Yeah.
Or figure out how to type it, because I can't do this. It's hard.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think a lot of people who would be interested in the subject kind of have either extreme suspicion of the light and love crowd and just don't want to go there, or there are like wounds already. Because, that's what I was going to say, is when I was around Doreen's people and I said something, and this was according to my personal experience, and I was being corrected.
Yeah.
By these people. Like, well, Doreen says. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's fine.
Yeah.
And realizing that they're
very one-sided and they're kind of closed-minded, I think.
Yeah, there was almost a cult energy to that. And it's like, wow, I know how to separate my experiences from that, but I feel like a lot of people would be very scared to even get involved there because of that. Like, I don't want this like cult weirdness going on, that I'm going to be told how to believe in these things, how to perceive them, how to work with them.
Well, the biggest thing about that is, and that's one of the reasons why I left Christianity also, was because I was tired of being spoon-fed crap that I didn't even believe in. I wanted to search and find answers myself, and not just say, well, because I told you so, or because it's written this way, or because it is. I'm like, that was never good enough for me. I want to look at other stuff. And so that's one of the reasons why I left Christianity too, is because I need to be able to be free to expand my mind and to research things and to experience things and not feel guilty because I'm not staying inside the box.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm not gonna, or that's evil, or that's of the devil, or whatever it is, or you're gonna be condemned to hell or whatever because, whatever, because I want to look at, the history of the devil or something like that. So and that's why I love having you come in and the other people come in and speakers come in and talk about their expertise, so we can expand the mind and the practice of, other witches. And so we can shed, some light, lack of a better word, light, on things that, may be a little bit scary, or, a different spin on stuff. And really have that hive mind in that conversation like we have here.
Mm-hmm.
That's very important. So I'm loving that you're going to be talking about Azrael in a different light than what we get mainstream. And I love how you actually was like, Azrael, what was it? The witch's angel or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that's just what came up one day. Was I was like, if I was going to teach a bunch of witches about archangels, where would I start? Mm-hmm. And that like winged through my head. It was like, Azrael, he's like the witch's archangel. He's kind of dark. He's about transformation and I just kind of feel this presence like right next to me, and it's like, there it is. And I'm like, oh God. Cool. Apparently we're doing this now.
Correct. So tell us though, where people can find you and where you hang out at. if they have any questions, or you're like, hey man, I want to learn more about these archangels.
I hang out mostly on Facebook right now. I am on Instagram, but I really suck at getting over there and doing anything with it.
It's tough.
I'm mostly on Facebook. I am happy to take friend requests, especially if they're friends with you and I at least know that we've got some mutual friends. People are welcome to PM me. My Facebook group has been a little stagnant due to the remodel and move and all of that, but it's Tempest Rising, Power, Magic, and High Strangeness is the name of the group.
Okay.
And I'm planning on getting a lot more active in there. I'm going to start doing like bi-weekly giveaways and all sorts of stuff. So that's actually the best place for people to get a hold of me.
Okay, cool.
Is on Facebook. Send me a friend request, join my group.
Yeah, come hang out. Talk about angels.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. And I'll put all that information in the description, so and all the links and everything. So one last question before we go, because we can, talk about angels. I find it very fascinating. So who are you crushing on now, like a podcast or a favorite witch or a book or even a cool movie? Because it's the season of the witch. So all kinds of movies are coming out now, all kinds of shows, I would say, coming out. So what is something that you're really like digging on right now?
I'm trying to think if I've even seen any good witch shows or movies lately. I feel like my life is a blur right now. Yeah. It's just one thing after another. I'm dreaming about remodeling right now. Like it's completely consumed my brain. So I'm like, huh? I've been trying to follow a little more a couple people. I'm friends with Rebecca Rubin. She comes off a lot more light and love. She's funny. She's like bubbly and perky and totally not the sort of person you would think that I'd be good friends with. But I loved listening to her because she does a lot of like inner child work and past life healing and stuff. And she's amazing. I'm getting to know Kelly Dawn a little bit better, who I know you know as well. So, so there's a couple people like that I've recently realized, like, I really need to listen to their podcast. But honestly, right now, I'm just trying to absorb everything from you because I am in the academy. Yeah. And I'm like,
Lindsey's in my academy. She's one of my students. So
I have like a million hours of stuff to go through and listen to, which is hard with 2 small children running around.
Yeah.
Although Brom comes up and like he'll listen and then he'll start asking questions.
That's good though.
What's that candle? What's that herb? I'm like,
I don't know. Let's have a discussion. Let's talk about it. I love it when the the witchlings, I call them witchlings, are very interested in it. Very curious about it. Because I didn't have that when I was growing up. I have a couple of clients that they grew up in a pagan community, in a pagan lifestyle and a pagan family. And so that was very much encouraged. So you can see the difference, how, as they grew up and as adult, how they were raised in this open-mindedness. So I love that he's very much showing interest in the craft for sure.
Yeah. It just makes it hard to listen to the video.
Yeah. That's why you always have access to it. So you can just, whenever you have time, go veg it out. All right, my friend, thanks for hanging out with us. And Lindsey's going to talk about the Archangel, Azrael, the Witch's Archangel, which I love that title. And that is happening November 6th through the 8th online at the Witches Gathering virtual event. I will put a link in the comment and description box where you can buy tickets. Tickets are available now. VIP tickets are very limited, so you want to grab your VIP tickets. And also at the bottom where it's scrolling, you should have a link down there too. So come hang out with us and Lindsey, November 6th through the 8th. All right. We'll talk to you later and witch on, everyone.